Hello friends. Okay, hello friends. Okay, hi friends. So in this video we're gonna learn how to create a application architecture. So suppose you want to create Android app and you're not sure like how to start. Maybe you want to talk to your freelancer or and he is asking you what are components you need, but you don't have any idea. So in this video I'll explain you how to create a Android application and what are the application components, architecture, design perspectives. Like, so this is kind of top bottom approach. Top bottom approach for a architecture is you first of all divide the complete architecture, और मीन्स वट एवर रिक्वायरमेंट यू हैव, आपकी जो भी रिक्वायरमेंट है उसको आप छोटे छोटे ब्लॉक्स में डिवाइड करते हैं. जैसे नोटिफिकेशन एक होगा, फ्रंट एंड एक होगा, बैक एंड एक होगा, फिर उसके बाद एप्लीकेशन डिप्लॉयमेंट होगा. सो इस तरह से छोटे छोटे कंपोनेंट्स होते हैं जिनको मिला के आप एक कंप्लीट एप्लीकेशन बनाते हैं. So you can, what you can do, you can assign the complete task to one developer who will do front end, who will create that application, who will create the back end, who will manage server, or you can hire different developers to मैनेज ईच ऑफ द रिक्वायरमेंट. आप हर एक रिक्वायरमेंट के लिए एक अलग से डेवलपर हायर कर सकते हैं, फ्रंट एंड के लिए, एंड्रॉइड एप्लीकेशन डेवलपमेंट के लिए, बैक एंड डेवलपमेंट के लिए, वेबसाइट डेवलपमेंट डिप्लॉयमेंट के लिए, और उसके बाद इन सबको मेंटेन करने के लिए भी आप एक अलग से टीम रख सकते हैं. सो इट इज ऑलवेज बेटर टू हायर अ टीम बिकॉज दैट टीम विल गिव यू अ होलिस्टिक व्यू हाउ मच टाइम इज गोना टेक, कितना टाइम लगने वाला है, उसमें कौन कौन से फीचर है जो अच्छे हैं, कौन कौन से फीचर है जो वो सजेस्ट कर सकते हैं, कौन कौन से फीचर है जो वो इम्प्रूव कर सकते हैं, किस फीचर में कितना टाइम लगेगा. सपोज नोटिफिकेशन भेजेंगे तो किस तरह की नोटिफिकेशन आप भेजेंगे, नोटिफिकेशन को ड्राइवर अप्रूव कैसे करेगा, नोटिफिकेशन अगर कैंसिल होता है तो फिर उसका क्या प्रोसेस होगा, अगर ऐप राइट कैंसिल होती है उसका नोटिफिकेशन कैसे जाएगा. सो ये कंप्लीट प्रोसेस, कंप्लीट थॉरो एंड टू एंड प्रोसेस. सो वी नीड टू थिंक एंड टू एंड. इफ वी थिंक वन कंपोनेंट, अगर हम एक कंपोनेंट के बारे में सोचेंगे और पूरा ऐप नहीं बनाएंगे, सो इट इज नॉट गना बी कंप्लीट. सो ऑलवेज मेक श्योर यू क्रिएट द काइंड ऑफ एप्स विच गिव्स योर यूजर, आपके जो यूजर हैं उनको एक ऐसा ऑब्जेक्टिव मिले, एक ऐसा एप्लीकेशन मिले जिसको वो अच्छे से यूज कर सके, और सो दैट दे डोंट जंप ओवर टू डिफरेंट एप्लीकेशंस. ऑल्सो इट इज ऑलवेज एडवाइजेबल कि आप सारे फीचर्स पहले लिख लें, सो अपने डेवलपर से डिस्कस कर लें, सो दैट वंस यू मूव फॉरवर्ड everything is clear in your mind as well as in the mind of developer. Definitely there are going to be some changes here and there, but always be sure that you create something which is useful, you create something which is viable, feasible, and which may work in the long run also. Always think about what the app features will be after 1 year. So always keep your like complete vision in your mind, that will give you holistic view. So now we'll discuss like what all components should be there in an Android application, or like all these things. So first of all, my friends, first of all there's going to be a client side, इसको हम मोबाइल ऐप बोलते हैं. सो मोबाइल मोबाइल ऐप, एंड्रॉइड, आईओएस, कुछ भी हो सकता है. सो कंपोनेंट्स आर गोना बी सेम. यूजर ऐप, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल देयर विल बी अ यूजर ऐप. जो यूजर ऐप यूजर अपने ऐप में इंस्टॉल, अपने फोन में इंस्टॉल करेगा, और उसमें उसके थ्रू वो राइड्स बुक करेगा, अवेलेबल ड्राइवर्स की लिस्ट देखेगा, और पेमेंट भी करेगा इफ यू कैन, वट एवर पेमेंट्स मोड यू वांट टू डू. Again, after that, you will need a driver app. So this driver app will be required to accept the ride request, navigate to the driver's location, and see driver, navigate to the passenger's information, and complete the rides. And after the ride, once the ride is complete, he should be able to see the rides he has completed, how much money he has got for a particular ride. If there are any issues, he should be able to raise an issue. So these all features should be there in the driver app. उसके बाद अपना आता है एडमिन पैनल. सो एडमिन पैनल इज समथिंग जिसके थ्रू आप यूजर्स को मैनेज कर सकते हैं, एग्जिस्टिंग राइट्स को मॉनिटर कर सकते हैं, अगर कोई इश्यू है उसको एडमिन पैनल के थ्रू फिक्स कर सकते हैं. इट इज अल्टीमेटली टू मैनेज, मॉनिटर एंड टू एंड एवरीथिंग. Like maybe it's driver's location, maybe it's rider's location, or if there is any YouTube, if there is any communication glitch, or if the network is broken. So all these things should be visible in the admin panel. Now let's go to the backend. Backend is a very important part in any application. It is the core. That's why it is called backend. It is the support. It is the main, like you can say, it is the backbone of the server, backbone of the application. जितना आप इसको जितने एक एक कंपोनेंट्स को आप इजीली डिफाइन करेंगे, जितना एक एक कंपोनेंट्स को अच्छे से डिफाइन करेंगे और जितना डीपली सोचेंगे, उतना ज्यादा आप उस एप्लीकेशन को अच्छे से बना पाएंगे. सो वन ऑफ द एग्जांपल इज ऑथेंटिकेशन सर्वर. सो ऑथेंटिकेशन सर्वर क्यों चाहिए होगा? सो दैट हर एक जो यूजर है, राइडर है, वो सिर्फ अपनी राइट दिख सके, दूसरे की राइट ना दिख सके. और इससे एक्सेस कंट्रोल होगा, पेमेंट, ऑल दीज थिंग्स, बिकॉज पेमेंट इज गोना गो थ्रू द ऐप. कहीं भी अगर किसी एप्लीकेशन में पेमेंट जा रही है, सो इट इज मस्ट दैट यू यूज ऑथेंटिकेशन सर्वर, सो दैट पेमेंट का क्या स्टेटस है, कौन से यूजर से पेमेंट रिलेटेड है, अगर रिफंड करना है तो किसके अकाउंट में जाना है, वो यूजर को नोटिफिकेशन देना. फॉर ऑल दीज थिंग्स यू नीड ऑथेंटिकेशन सर्वर. इफ द सर्वर यूजर इज नॉट ऑथेंटिकेटेड तो आप ये चीजें नहीं कर पाएंगे. इसके बाद यू नीड अ डेटाबेस सर्वर. डेटाबेस सर्वर, यू नो ऑल कि like whatever information you are getting, right information, user information, driver information, हर एक चीज, everything needs to be stored in a granular structure, bitwise structure, like smallest components in the database, so that later on you can use it into dashboarding, or later on you can fetch again to analyze some information, how much revenue you are generating per year. So all this information should be there in your database, so that in future if any query is raised by any user, you should be able to fetch that particular write from the database and see what exactly happened. After that, you will need an API server. So API server, as you all need application programmable interface. So this interface is used for the communication between the mobile app and the database. Like whatever information will be saved into the database, for that you will need a API server. You cannot just directly use the mobile application to save the information directly into the database. That is highly unsecure because apps are installed in the client's mobile, maybe riders, maybe the driver, maybe the passenger. They can modify it, or it can be hacked easily once the app is Android application is available on the Android store or Google Play Store or wherever it is available. So always make sure you create an API server which communicates between the server, backend, and the mobile application, and processes the write request, calculate fare, and all those things. After that, you will need the payment gateway. So payment gateway, why payment gateway is required? Payment gateway is required so that the rider, once the ride is ended, the rider is supposed to make the payment to the driver or to the company. So later on, that payment will be disbursed to the driver's account, maybe after certain number of hours or after certain number of days. For all these things, you will need a payment gateway. So always choose a payment gateway which has all the features and which is supported in all the nations where you want to do the service, where you want to run your business. Geolocation services. This feature is, all of us know that it's very important. It's going to be a very important feature, geolocation services, because this is going to define where the rider is exactly is, where your driver is exactly present, and if the driver is not able to track the user location, then you can help him. So location tracking, route planning, what route the driver will take, that, so how much time that will require, accordingly the money will be allocated. If the route has particular traffic, then searching the different routes. So all these things are going to be used by the geolocation services. So after that, you will need notification service. Why notification? Ride is booked, ride is cancelled, ride is rider is coming, ride is completed. All those notifications should be there on the Android app, maybe on the riders, maybe on the client side, maybe on the driver side. So these notifications help a user or the company or the rider or the driver, anyone who is using these services, to track properly, to provide real-time notifications. If there is any glitch, if there is any issue occurring on the ride, there should be a notification. Right matching algorithm. We all know that right matching algorithm is going to be required into this service. So at the end of it, you will need a rating or feedback system. If there is any issue, or if the rider is not happy, or if he is happy with the ride, he should be able to give the feedback so that you can constructively support that particular rider to ride again. And if there is any issue occurring, you can support fix that issue, and you can track that particular issue. So all these things will be required. After that, let's come on the infrastructure and scalability part. So why infrastructure is required? Once you launch the service, Initially there is not much of requirement of our infrastructure and you don't need to think about it. Also now there are AWS services such as AWS Cognito, AWS ELB, AWS Lambda, where you don't need to think about all this infrastructure and all these particular things, but you still need to understand what are gonna be the components, what are on which your service relies. So let's start with that. First of all, there is going to be a load balancer. Load balancer? Load balancer is supposed to distribute the traffic across the multiple instances. And load balancer can be for anything or everything. Like it can be for the database, it can be for the application server, it can be for anything. Like so, ultimately, load balancer का काम बस इतना ही है कि जो भी ट्रैफिक आ रहा है उसको डिफरेंट डिफरेंट नोड्स पे डिवाइड करना, सो दैट अगर कोई एक नोड पर्टिकुलरली फेल भी हो रहा है, सो दैट हम वो रिक्वेस्ट किसी और पर्टिकुलर नोड पे डाल सकते हैं, जिससे कि वो रिक्वेस्ट रीराउट होकर एक सही लोकेशन में पहुंचेगा और we will not lose any particular packet, any particular request, because ultimately that is gonna harm our business. You need to understand the business aspect also. Why load balancer is used. Cloud services. So as you all know, like in these days there are many cloud providers: AWS, GCP, Azure, Microsoft Azure. So why do we use these services? Why not we host our own server? Because they provide scalability, reliability, easy deployment, and continuous integration, continuous deployment. So they provide all these particular things. जो अगर आप अपनी अलग सर्विस बनानी चाहेंगे तो आपको अलग से अपने लिए उसका एक एक चीज का सेटअप करना पड़ेगा, लेकिन since all these applications are all these providers are already providing, you can just ready to use, you can just use it directly. You don't even need to think about what happened if the service fail. These servers are there and they have the agreement of 99% of 99.99% of availability of the server. So make sure you read the terms, you read the user's agreement very carefully before choosing any cloud provider, so that you are aware what services are going to be available and what all things you need to manage by your own. So because ultimately your business is going to impact if there is any downtime. After that, there's going to be a caching mechanism. Why caching mechanism? So caching mechanism, like like there's gonna be lots of traffic. Initially, there is not much of requirement of caching mechanism, but ultimately there's gonna be lots of traffic. So for routing that traffic, you need a caching mechanism. For RabbitMQ, even if you use a queuing system, you'll need a caching mechanism to read or store the data temporarily into the cache, or to improve the app performance very simply. Like जितना आपका डेटा कैश में रहेगा उतना ज्यादा आपकी उतने कम डेटाबेस पे हिट पड़ेंगे और उतना ही फास्ट आपका एप्लीकेशन होगा, उतना ही फास्ट थ्रूपुट होगा आपकी एप्लीकेशन का. आफ्टर दैट, माइक्रो सर्विस आर्किटेक्चर. Why a microservice architecture? You can just go with a monolithic architecture these days. Don't need it. But you can also choose a microservice architecture if you want it to manage your each services separately. So, and later on you can deploy each of the services automatically, like in isolation, and maybe a number of developers can work on different services, but you can also create a monolithic service. There is not much of need that you go to microservices only. Be sure what you want. You want monolithic architecture, you want microservice architecture, how you will manage your service. That is ultimately you need to understand how the service is gonna be deployed. If you're using ELB or something, you can just directly use it. It will just directly deploy your services. You don't need maybe different services, different microservices, or you don't need like something like EKS, Kubernetes or something. If you have, but you can definitely go for these things, microservices. If you want to run a very big company, hundreds of features, you want to run for many number of years, you want dashboard, everything. So definitely, their microservices are helpful. After that, as you all know, that monitoring and analytics, these things are going to be very useful. Why monitoring analytics? You need to understand users' behavior, you need to understand riders' behavior, you need to understand drivers' behavior. If they're facing any issues in the ride, booking the ride, canceling the ride, driver servers facing any issue in accepting the ride. So all these features are required so that you can make an informed business decision, how to choose the next feature, which areas to improve, which area is getting the maximum impact, maximum profit, or which area is not very much successful. So you can take the according steps. Maybe you can send the notification, or maybe you can try to understand what is exactly happening into that area. You want to run that business in that area or not. So all these information, anything or everything, आपका business आपके सामने पूरा open होगा if you have a monitoring and analytics server dashboarding. So after that, you will also need SSL, TLS encryption. You will also need security measures. So why security measures? Why you need to secure your application? You will say that why am I need to secure my application? Why? Because I'm hosting it on my server. There is VPN. There is everything. Why I need to host the application? Why I need to the encryption or something? Because the application, the data is moving from client to the server through the internet. Please understand, you may be securing your VPN, you may be securing your dashboard, or maybe you may be securing your like whatever service provider you is using, AWS or whatever, they may provide anything or everything, all the secure mechanisms. But please understand that it is going through the internet, and if there is not, it is not encrypted, and someone enters your network, they can easily read the data, steal the data, manipulate data. They can do anything with your business. Like these things do not generate the direct revenue, but they can cause lots of harm into your business. So once you are initially creating your application, once you are launching your application, you will not need these things. You can just directly launch the application, but with the time, make sure that at regular intervals you keep security checks and you ensure different mechanisms. So again, data privacy. Why data privacy? Because there are regulations, there are GDPR regulations, there are different measures to safeguard user and payment data. Because data is ultimately the king. Data is very important part. If your computer will get your data, then they can directly launch. They can send the notification to your clients that with the different cheaper options or maybe the better options or whatever they can, and they can do anything with your data. So keep your business secret, keep your business private, and nothing should be leaked out of the system. Even your developers or your internal systems or internal system with their dashboarding or whatever person is using your system, they should be able to see only the components they should be using. Maybe the backend with the database. They should not be able to delete any data. They should not be able to modify any at regular intervals into place proper mechanisms. Also, you need to put a request based system so that if anyone is using any particular feature, he raises a request. So after that, you need the authentication authorization. Why authentication authorization? It is very obvious, because there are n number of hundreds of thousands of users, or if it is on a very big application, there's going to be millions of users. So authentication authorization, just keep the packet secure. Whatever packet is going through your system, it just keeps it secure. If you don't use the authentication authorization, अगर आप authentication authorization नहीं करेंगे, तो you can just understand the data will not be very much secure. You can still go with a complete application, but ultimately data will not be secure. And if anything is failing, it will not be easy to target. So yeah, that's why these things are useful. Again, maintaining these things, like running these services for a longer, creating these things are easy. You can just think a number of features, you can just go and deploy. Maintaining these things, running the cost optimization, server failures, to handle all of these things, we have a very strong team in the backend at the server side and the deployment side at the cloud side. And you need to make sure that you are monitoring each and everything thoroughly, and you set up your notifications for everything, maybe your payment, maybe for your server usages, or so that you don't miss out any important thing, because any small thing can impact the business in a very small way. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. That's all right now for this particular video, and again we'll come up with a very big next video. Till then, see you, take care, guys. Thank you so much.